Once upon a time, Khidr, the teacher of Moses, called upon mankind with a warning. At a certain date, he said, all the water in the world, which had not been specially saved, would disappear. It would then be renewed with different water, which would drive men mad. Only one man listened to the meaning of this advice. He collected water and went to a secure place where he stored it and waited for the water to change its character. On the appointed day, the streams stopped running, the wells went dry, and the man who had listened, seeing this happening, went to his retreat and drank his preserved water. When he saw from his security the waterfalls again beginning to flow, this man descended among the other sons of men. He found that they were thinking and talking in an entirely different way from before, yet they had no memory of what had happened, nor of having been warned. When he tried to talk to them, he realized that they thought he was mad, and they showed hostility or compassion, but not understanding. At first, he drank none of the new water, but went back to his concealment to draw on his supplies every day. Finally, however, he made the decision to drink the new water, because he could not bear the loneliness of living, behaving, and thinking in a different way from everyone else. He drank the new water and became like the rest. Then he forgot all about his own store of original water, and his fellows began to look upon him as a madman who had miraculously been restored to sanity. What do we do day after day after day? We give up, or let's say we don't listen to the signals, the warnings, the impressions of authenticity, what we know or intuit to be true, and we sell out for that which is sold to us, that which is more convenient, that which everybody else does, where we feel more comfortable, where we'll be accepted. And we don't hearken, we don't act upon, we don't own up to the impressions, the authenticity of what we sense inside of us. And that is always there. However, it gets less and less and less so. It diminishes with time and with the lack of practice. And with the lack of practice, we begin to think it's imagination. It's not what is correct. And we start listening more and more. We increase our listening and response more and more to what is told to us from outside, what should be, what makes us more comfortable. I was thinking the other day that actually we're double agents. Everybody is a double agent. We have two allegiances, or two countries, two territories, two sets of principles. And in time we forget one and we pay allegiance to the other. But this double allegiance is what we constantly struggle against, the division between mind and heart, between the outer world, the social needs that will shelter us in a make-believe togetherness with the rest of the world that accepts us, and that which we know to be true in our privacy inside of us, but is only inside. And we somehow try to make a combination of the two. We constantly try to bridge these two worlds, these two realities, these two allegiances, these two countries or identities. And we develop a certain style. In my latest book, the e-book on personal focus of consciousness called Personal Energy Bodies, I talk about this focus of consciousness where I work from. Now, instead of naming it as we have in our spiritual studies as the I am, it becomes a very abstract concept. Let's just look at it as a plain eye that sees anything. I am conscious of a center in me. There's a focus of consciousness in me that looks out on the world. And everything I do comes from this focus of consciousness. Now, this focus of consciousness is merely a machinery. It is a grouping, let's say, of intelligence that allows me to orient myself through the vehicles, the instruments, the bodies of energy that we call it, in the world. So I am orienting myself through what I know to be visual reality. And all the senses act to shape and give direction and meaning to this focus of consciousness. If we can imagine a newborn child seeing and then learning to identify and to somehow catalog, what it sees, hears, smells, tastes, and feels emotionally and sensorially. You can imagine how this begins to shape in us. So we start developing an identity which has a name. Later we call it I, but at first it is Zulma, or Fred, or Matthew, or Andrew. And in time it becomes this even more abstract I. And this I is full of experiences given by the different senses or bodies of energy. And this is the way we shape our identity throughout our existence. And this is an allegiance to the common world that we live in. It's to the social amenities and needs. And we fit into that. We develop psychology, our psychology. So we are perhaps a bit more aggressive than others. Others learn to submit and get what they think they need or believe that they need by submitting. Others by pushing a bit more. And we begin to define the character, the personality, the ego. Now, the ego is synonymous to this personal focus of consciousness, only that in our age, ego has come to mean a bad word. Ego is something that is not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be enlightened. And it's impossible to live without ego. Even enlightened beings have ego. But the ego can be very personal, or it can be non-personal. Our personal ego is an allegiance to all the cultural factors that shaped us. We identify with that as being correct, with that as being necessary, with that as being the rules or the laws of the land. Deep inside, there's another allegiance that we hardly ever know, unless we have touched bottom, unless we are in the height or the depths, the height of ecstasy or the depths of ecstasy. We touch on that something that goes beyond all these other allegiances, and we say, yes. Many people identify that yes in those moments with an experience given from the outside to produce that. Most people do. So the happiness that I feel, the ecstasy that I feel, is caused by my partner, by my friend, by my lover, by the meditation that I practice, whatever instrument I use, by removing myself from the world and creating my meditation room in silence, isolating myself, or by playing music, always dependent on something else to elicit this inner allegiance, this inner contact with the deeper part of myself. Very few people arrive at the place where they can discriminate or discern that this personal focus of consciousness has nothing to do with the outside world. That there's an inner world which is non-dependent on anything, excuse me, or anyone. And this is where the double agent cuts into a quandary. Who do I pay allegiance to? And like the story I just read to you a little while back, if I am myself and authentic, I'm going to be believed mad. I'm not going to fit into the world. People are not going to love me. They're not going to like me. And when I feel that I don't belong, I don't belong. I'm unhappy. So I can't be authentic anyway. So it's like a chasing your own tail kind of thing. Now, the personal focus of consciousness is independent of the use that we give it. Just like your identity is independent of what you do or what you appear. This I am that seems so abstract is an everyday, constant occurrence. Now, there's a very important distinction that needs to be made, because in all spiritual work, at least in the practice, in the ones that we practice, the line that we follow, it is extremely important, as a matter of fact, crucial, critical, fundamental, that you develop your personality. Some people will have you put this away, place it away, and isolate yourself and go into this non-mental silence. I was just talking with someone the other day who was in India. She came back and said, "Oh, I can't think about it now because I'm in my no-mind state." What is this no-mind state? Another illusion, another idea, another definition that you give your focus of consciousness. Another excuse, if you wish. There is no mind in the sense that you can talk about it. The no mind is constant. It's a backdrop. It's a continuous reality behind everything that you do. In that sense that consciousness is not something to be practiced. It is something to fall into. You can't do it. You can elicit it once you grab it, once you grasp it. It's a trick. It's like the personal focus of consciousness falls into an attunement inside of you. It falls into a pocket or a space where everything makes sense. And time is not needed, because time is mind, is linear, is dialogue, is communication, is relationship, which we need to use from that other space where we have fallen into the personal focus of consciousness, and it is no longer personal. And yet fully free to be as personal as you need or wish to be. You not only create your world, you are constantly interpreting it. And your personality, that which you forged accidentally, or so you think, from the moment you were born, with all the experiences and the type of equipment and structure that you have, that's your main instrument. And you're not going to be a lily if you're a rose. But the personal focus of consciousness, your awareness, and this is a very tricky word, because awareness, many people think of, is thinking. To be aware, I need to think. I need to identify the state I am in right now with words. And the whole trick of our path, anyway, is to learn to interpret and understand reality. It almost sounds like a juxtaposition of terms without words, without the concept, as a direct experience. Wow, I'm using words. You're listening to me through words. You're listening to me through experience. It's like all of a sudden the mind goes into a knot. What does she mean? How am I going to do this? So all of this is for you to listen, let it seep through, and think. Yes, think as much as you want to think. And then give spaces to what that thought produces. Give spaces. I've just had a very dear student who has experienced the emotional depth of relationship and sex for the first time. Wonderful. And I asked her, are you able now to make a distinction between the emotions that were so necessary, also she's a woman, the emotions that were so necessary for you to experience this intense love and opening, which allowed you to surrender and give yourself and share, because there's no real giving, we use the word give. You open a space where the other and you become one unit of movement, experience, energy. However, to get to that space that we call love, the human emotions are involved. None of us here are at the basic instinctual level where sex alone will take us there. The sensation will take us there to a certain level, but the depths is always through this state of emotional receptivity. So I asked her, and now can you distinguish the state that you got to from the emotions that induced you there? And this is the critical question at every level. Do not identify the instrument with the experience, and begin to cultivate the experience itself. The state in which you fall into when you are in love is not the other person. Thank you very much, I love you, but I don't even need you. We don't allow ourselves to tell one another that, do we? We've got to bind the other with promises of need and continuity. And do it consciously. You want to make promises, you love and honor the other, do it consciously, but know, and this is where the double identity comes in, your other deeper allegiance must always be more important. I know that I don't need you. I know I've had, and I have, and I can have. Once you have touched it, nothing will ever take it away. That experience is there. You don't need your wife or your husband or your friend or your lover to reproduce that state of love in you. You honor the other. You can do all you want. And you don't need to be an emotional display either. The emotional body is one of the fields of energy, or the emotional arena, if you wish. Energy is one of the fields that we explore through the flexible focus, personal focus of consciousness. As the mental field is also a field. Now this is more complex for those of you who are not students of inner alchemy. But even any intelligent person can grasp the concept. So these are not things that make us. They're all instruments. What is always counting is this personal focus of consciousness. And here's where the personality becomes so important and magnificent, because it is the instrument. So as I was saying also last night to another student who is very gentle, and he cannot say no. There's many people like this who can't say no to another because it hurts them so much. And I know that it hurts this person very, very much to deny what he feels is deny another person their space or their authenticity or their respect. So he's not confrontative like I can be, and I am many times. I say it as it is. This is my style. Okay? But when you are the way that you are, become aware and honor that instrument. But you're not at the mercy of it. So if I am in my confrontative, others may see it even as aggressive, direct, strong, passionate, whatever words we use that are more to our liking, I must be aware of how I use this energy and my personality. I must be aware how the world is receiving me and what the needs are. Not because I think it and have to plan it out. If my personal focus of consciousness is in me, in the experience of me without labels, all of this falls into place. If I am in my identity, in this personal ego, in my image, then I have to calculate. And then I see you through all the filters. One always has filters, by the way, anyway. But let's say they're less dense. Okay, coming back to my student. There is no reason why he has to become like me. And there's no reason for him to judge me as being violent. If we're both personal focus of consciousness inside yourself, you can honor and allow people to be as they are without having to control the world and make it spiritual or all right or safe. Which is what we're constantly doing with one another, even in the name of love. So, when the person cannot say no, let's look at the word cannot. I'm aware of the pain in you. I'm aware if I tell you what I am seeing that you will be disoriented, that you will not feel happy, and then I will have to feel your unhappiness too. I'm the bearer of the news or of the transmission, so I have a responsibility. And even beyond the personal responsibility, hey, I gotta feel it. And it's sticky, it's yucky, it's heavy. So I'd rather keep it all light. Let's keep it all light. The spiritual world is all light and smiles. Okay. I don't want to get involved. Now I'm trying to depict this without putting a value judgment on it. But there's a mixture of triggers here where the person is acting defensively, protectively of himself, also in part consideration of the other. Now, how much of this is my student aware of at the moment? It is so instinctive. And this is what needs to be revised. Sorry, the word is not instinctive, it's automatic. If it were instinctive, you would know what you need to do and say, even if it hurts you. Only my friend, my student, and I would say it in a different way. He'd be a lot more diplomatic and gentle about it than me, probably. Truth is one. Reality is one. Know your nature. Know the need that you have. If somebody like me, it's bursting. I simply have to act. It's something that's pushed me all my life. Unpleasantly for me, and sometimes for others too. If it is your nature to stand back and enfold and feel with emotionally people, feel the delicacy of the other person. Feel the pain even and the suffering of the other person. Awareness is not thinking. The most important awareness comes from your body and your own senses. This is why many traditions will have you practice on the senses without attaching any importance or description to them. The senses function in many different ways, just like the chakras do, also in many, many different levels, not just on those stereotyped New Age definitions of the chakras. And in each level, you have an intelligent activity. At each level, you have a relational activity, which we call emotions. And at each level, you have the vital, vibratory resonance aspect, which we call vitality, or the action of matter, of movement. So the personality we wear is going always to be the vessel through which our soul, we're going to experience ourselves. We need to be aware of our own, and we need to be aware, take away the word need. We need to allow this intuitive awareness of what happens around us, what is needed and appropriate. And among ourselves, and with the people we love, if we love them, if they've chosen us, if we've chosen them, it is to be authentic. It is to be in allegiance with this second most important agency, in this double agent business that we're in. So always know that there's these two allegiances in you. How are you going to manage them? The way you manage them is the mirror of your integrity and your level of spirituality, of flexible, applied spirituality in the world. And that's what spirituality is for. Not to remove yourself and isolate yourself over there because you've had it with the world, because the world is gross and ugly and smelly and whatever else it is. Because we've got a madman leading our politics or whatever. It's to be in it. It's to use our personality in this world. This is what it's all about in this cycle. And now, honor that inner allegiance. Honor your authenticity and be that. However your personality, structure, or style may communicate or not. Do not put the veil over your own mind, because it is easier. And this is what most of you do. It's easier to fall into the patterns of convenience. So if you get the shakes, like I often do, when I have to tell you what I'm seeing, and you keep thinking you're being very spiritual, and I'm saying, look again. And I know that it hurts, and I shake, and I hurt. But when we get through that, the space we reach is marvelous. And of course, you're not going to be like me, because there's only one me. Maybe, fortunately. You're going to be like you, because I can't be like you. There's only one you.